Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 12.23, The Hands of History. We are back. Hi.
Yes, I'm feeling the hands of history, if you know what I'm saying.
What do you mean by this?
Welcome back to Aetheral Space. So the funny thing is, it not only was an arc fake out last chapter, but like entirely, it's still arc 12.
Yeah, this is the last chapter of arc 12 though.
This implies that if Dragon had gotten yenked off and didn't come back, that would have been the end.
Yeah.
But now we get bonus lore because he killed Kaiser.
Because he was like, I didn't hear no
Very
bell.
interesting. One sec. Sorry, my throat.
Just to note as well, there is going to be a half-week hiatus between this chapter and the start of arc 13, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, and if you complain about it, you will be
You will die instantly. I don't even have to do anything, just my killing...
You'll fucking eat the meat off your bones.
My killing intent alone it will be like a blade.
Alright. I'm going to read this fast because I know Tan said he has to wind down, but I will be showing him Dracula Flow 4 after this. Phone Heaven, Desert Planet, Supremacy Space. Dragon Hadrian walked, one foot in front of the other. Steady forward movement. It was simple enough. Even if his mind was swimming in fog, he could still walk. Even if it felt like he was about to disintegrate, he could still walk. He could also rest. That was an idea. The boarding tube for his nameless ship was long and dark, and most importantly, it was empty. There were no prying eyes to see an inconvenient moment of weakness. Dragon slumped against the wall and slid down it, panting for breath. "You went too hard then, boy," Pan frowned, squatting down next to him. "Did you forget? I can replace, but I can't fix, and it still hurts." "It's fine," Dragon insisted. "Pain is just an alarm system for the body. So long as I know it's a false alarm, it's nothing to worry about. I can power through." What does she mean by can't fix?
Well, you can't, like, fix something that's damaged. You can replace it if it's missing, but you can't fix it if it's damaged.
Interesting. Pan's frown deepened, but she said nothing else. She knew that Dragon was more than used to pain by now. He'd had 2 years to grow stronger, strong enough to take on any challenging. Normal training wouldn't have been sufficient. He needed to be overwhelming, not just skilled. To achieve something like that, you had to enter the realm of insanity. Pan had helped. First, he'd aether burned until he was right at the point of no return. Then he'd recorded and dispelled the damaged parts of his body, allowing Pan to replace them. Then he'd aether burned, again, and again, and again, raising his maximum tolerance each time. So I did have a question about this, because I figured he did something similar with this with Pan, and that's how he deepened his pool. But if it's a physical thing, and she's replacing his body, how does his tolerance
It is a mix
withstand?
of consciousness and physical with your limit, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's very messy.
Until now, he could fire off a volley of what had previously been his strongest attack with but a wave of his hand. Dragon closed his eyes for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow. What should the voice be for this?
Do you just do this one-line neutral?
"Hey," said an ownerless voice. "He'll look like shit, boss man." Dragon opened an annoyed eye. Could a person ever get some privacy in this galaxy? The speaker flickered into existence, leaning against the wall. North smirked. Oh, I remember his voice. His arms crossed as he looked down at Dragon. It was like the meowt, right? It's like, yeah, I'm North. He wore a leather jacket and a pair of thick blue jeans, not suited to the climate in the least. Although this time he hadn't had to leave the ship. Not a bead of his sweat was present on his tan skin or slicked back gray hair. Nice for some. Wait, nice for what?
It's nice for some people, basically.
Oh. "This is what happens to people who work hard, North," Dragon sighed, pulling himself up into a sitting position. Yeah, North waved a dismissive hand. "I gotcha. So, how's it looking? Got all your bits back where they should be?" Dragon cracked his neck. Once again, he was undergoing that torturous process, dispelling damaged parts from the inside of his body so that Pan could replace them. Probably best not to move around during that, so for the time being, he stayed on the floor. His stamina must be insane. Ugh. So I have a question. Yeah. Can he build muscle? Like, when Pan regenerates, does it regenerate whatever muscle existed, or is he a forever twink because of
whatever was there previously comes back. Yeah, a replica of that.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So it's not like it's pointless to work out and stuff.
No.
And that would also explain how the body stuff transfers when it's... okay. "Just give me a minute or two," Dragon grunted, pain lingering behind his teeth. "You run into any trouble?" "Nah." North blinked his black eyes, dark as night, save for the red pupils at their center. "Like you said, nobody came looking for you. I was checking out everyone who went through the port, so I'm sure. The serpent did good work. Dragon's brow creased. After what he pulled, he better have. North fished a chocolate bar out of his pocket, biting into it with the corner of his mouth as he shrugged. Whatever you say, boss man. Want me to kill him? Dragon shook his head. No, not yet. There's no need, unless he does something really stupid. I want to keep him around until the end of the Dawn contest, at least. Whatever you say, North repeated, smirking. For the last 2 years, North had been Dragon's shadow. He'd helped find things that needed to be found, steal things that needed to be stolen, kill people who needed to be killed. Even with the grisly nature of the job, however, Dragon found North surprisingly pleasant to work with. He supposed he was certainly being paid enough. Any news on Winston Grace? Dragon almost asked, but no point. Dragon shifted against the wall, joints cracking into place. Once he was settled, his eyes narrowed and his voice turned serious. And how are we looking? North spun his script on his finger. Footage got out fine. Everything up to you finishing off the weird lizard. It looks good. I got an eye for cinematography, you know. And the response? North's red eyes seemed to shine in the darkness. You sure gave him something to think about. Word's still spreading, but for now, you're everyone's big favorite. Dragon smiled softly, closing his eyes and letting the back of his head tap against the wall. Oh, he's a celebrity. I imagine entering the Dawn contest, even if you don't win and you surrender, is like great for your fucking follower count if you make it far enough.
What is up, guys? Welcome back. I was a finer inter-melee contestant in the last Dawn contest.
Here's my Sigma tips.
I was the only person in Bone Heaven who surrendered.
You know that already by the time there's like a fucking Sigma compilation of Dragon Hadrian quotes on Sphere.
Oh my god, can we get an example of some? It's playing like the Sigma music and it's like showing over Dragon.
Is me.
Some people
like,
whine. I choose to stack fans.
Dragon Mail
there's like shit that he's
than Sigma.
There's shit that he's never said attributed to him.
It's like trusting you is my decision. Letting me down is your choice.
80% of men choose to have girlfriend. Other 20% have brain. It's Dragon.
As per usual, everything was going according to Keikaku. Ioneer Yggdrasil, 8 phases of the turning of the air headquarters. Supremacy Space. The image lingered on the screen of the script. A toy Musashi, his face bruised and bloodied, leaving as the victor of his inner melee. Below the image, the Silver Eye article listed off his history and achievements, stretching on and on. He was well liked, it seemed. A return to a more honorable age of the supremacy. A shadow of Gale the Golden, some said. A good man who would make a good supreme. Akalima's hand shook as she looked at the image. Murderer! She hurled the script across the room and it smashed against the wall. As a cleaning automatic hurried over to clean up the mess, she brought her knees up to her chest, hugging them tightly. Akalima sat right in the middle of her massive bed, as if afraid something would crawl out from underneath it if she exposed herself. It wasn't out of the question on a ship like this. Who's talking? What's he doing? She asked softly, face pale, eyes glancing up at the other two in the room. Since he got back, I mean? Has he done anything? The two special officers glanced at each other. Endo Silver Saint, the gallant knight, Anya Hapgrass, the wild performance artist. Akalima had brought them in of her own free will. They were the only ones she could trust. They were the only ones allowed to get this close to her, to set foot in her private quarters. She couldn't risk letting anyone else. Well, Anya shrugged, he's mostly been sleeping more than anything. Morgan keeps watch over him most of the day, so if he said something to anyone else, I haven't heard about it. His injuries were grievous, Endo said, his helmet rattling as he nodded. Stimulants and micropanacea are doing their work, however. He should be back on his feet by the time of the Dawn contest, Akalima finished, her gaze distant, hugging her legs tighter. Oh God, oh God. This was like a nightmare. She'd hoped that, facing so many powerful people in the inner melee, Hattori Musashi would have been forced to drop out. That would have been the end of it, but no, he wouldn't stop. He'd squeaked through somehow. He was going to kill her. Oh God, he was going to kill her. Just like he'd let her father die, she was next. Would he even wait for the Dawn contest? He had no reason to. She was outnumbered here. The blades were all on his side. She looked up at Endo and Anya. Don't leave me alone tonight, she said, almost begging. Has Musashi done a single rude thing to her? Aside from failing to protect someone capable of killing them?
He is like in a contest specifically to replace her.
Yeah, but, like, he hasn't, like, been rude to her or, like, threatened her or anything, right? Knowing him. He's just done his job, right? I guess not.
Your silence speaks volumes. One of you has to stay in here. The other one stands guard outside. Now that he's in the Dawn contest for sure, he might try to finish me off. He won't wait long. Endo rested a stoic hand on the hilt of his greatsword. Fear not, my heir, he said. Until the light leaves my eyes, I shall keep you safe. Aklama nodded quickly, relieved, before turning to Anya. You'll stay too, right? If she could trust Endo Silversane, then she could certainly trust Anya Hapgrass. The woman had been like an older sister to her these last couple of years, keeping her safe and steady. But still, she needed to know. She needed to know for sure. She'd been burnt before, after all. Anya smiled softly. I'll be outside, she said. All night. Aklama let out a shaky breath, bringing her pillow to her mouth to stifle it. Promise? She squeaked. I promise. Aklama closed her eyes. Thank you. Dude, all he did was fail his mission. He didn't fucking kill the Supreme. He's just Muzat. Tan.
Yeah?
Tan, honey.
What's up?
Explain this to me.
Well, from her
Why
perspective,
is she
she
such
came
a
down,
hater?
she's like, I've got this new special power, I can save him. And then he knocked her out and was like, I'll save him. And then he didn't.
He just wanted to protect her. He's a
People
good man.
are-
Remember all the times he trained
People
her?
are not
How much he
logical.
tried to help her with his... He tried to help her with her Aether, remember? And he was like, I believe in you, Aklama.
Yeah, but then he was later, he was like, no, you're too weak. Fuck off.
Wow. Wow, not true. Who's talking?
It's telling you who's talking.
Oh, but there's like weird... I think there's something afoot. You stay in there with her for now. Anya Hapgrass said to Endo Silversane, lingering outside the bedroom door. We'll switch places a few hours in. He nodded. You'll be guarding the entrance, I take it, my lady. Anya grinned mischievously, thumbs hooking the suspenders of her overalls and pulling them. Eventually. Endo's face would have been concealed by his helmet, but she could hear the frown in his voice all the same. Are you certain? You told the heir you'd remain outside. Don't worry so much, Anya said, casually sauntering off. Even if I'm not standing here, I'm still keeping her safe. I'm gonna go see what old Toy Muzazi's up to. Reconnaissance, you know? I see. How much do you want to bet these fucking guys are just Darkstar guys? Why would you have put apostrophes on their names otherwise, Tan? The Silver Saint didn't seem quite convinced. Didn't quite seem convinced? I don't know.
Just fine.
Anya stopped walking, signed, and spun around on the spot, facing her fellow special officer. Her golden eyes were cold and flat. Who's talking right now?
Yeah.
Anya? Endo, she said seriously. Don't tell the Supreme Heir that I'm gone. Endo nodded as if the request was the most natural thing in the world. Of course. Now that was dealt with. Now that was.
The-
Two that's feels weird, but one that also feels weird. Maybe with that dealt with? I don't know.
I like that.
Now that was dealt with. Now with that dealt with. There we go. We did it, guys.
We made it, guys.
That sentence isn't real
Fucking
anymore.
bell.
Now with that dealt with, Anya turned back around and continued her evening walk. She didn't go to a Toy Muzazi, though. That had been a teensy lie. But to the bathroom. She just needed a second. It had been such a long day, after all. Such a long fucking day. She hummed happily to herself. Anya skipped through the metal hallways. This part of the ship remained separate from Ionir Yggdrasil's body, separate from his roving branches and always roaming eyes. Aklama preferred it that way. She never felt safe, surrounded by a titan she was convinced would prefer her dead. If it was up to Anya, she'd have burnt that tree down ages ago. She hummed happily to herself. Oh my god, Anya is Gretchen, isn't it? Oh, fuck, I just realized. At any rate, the heir had become a truly repulsive brat. It was good for Anya's purposes, but still, the innocent anxiety that was cute and endearing for a child had mutated into an edge of ugly paranoia, and Anya had to play host to it constantly. If she weren't a genius, she would have long since gone insane, and it was only safe because he was at the opposite end of the intelligence spectrum. She hummed happily to herself, slipping into the bathroom and looking at her adorable face in the mirror. A smile spread from dimple to dimple. So Toy Muzazi had made it to the Dawn contest, had he? Wow, that sure was something. He was real strong, huh? There were so many powerful enemies on Ocean 8, and he'd managed to beat them all, so he really deserved the win. Lots of people had their eyes on him now. Lots of people were thinking he'd make a good Supreme. Good for him! He was getting recognitions for his efforts. People really liked Atoy Musashi. They thought he was the best. How wonderful! That's not true. Everyone's so mean to him. This is like the most untrue ever. Anya Hapgrass. People are nice to Musashi only off screen. Anya Hapgrass began to hum happily, and Gretchen Hale stopped. I knew it! Her face contorting with rage as she slammed her fist into the mirror again and again and again. By the time she was done, both the shattered glass and her hand were coated in blood. God damn it! God damn it! Why was everyone in this galaxy so useless? As the cleaning automatic scurried to contain the remnants of Gretchen's outburst, she took a step back, fiery orange aether crackling around her knuckles. King was supposed to have been one of the best in the business, and yet he failed all the same. Even with her providing him a fusion tool, he'd failed miserably. How hard was it to kill one person? She knew now that hiring King was a mistake. The man had obviously been far past his prime, but who else could she have gotten? The Hive of Malkuth couldn't get their numbers into an inner melee. Appointment was definitely a non-starter, and the less said about the Sixth Dead, the better. Even approaching that lunatic was suicidal. So she had gone for King, and he had failed her, along with all the other pieces she'd given him. It was becoming a distressingly common sensation. Gretchen rubbed her temples. She'd gotten so far, but that last hurdle continued to elude her. She'd acquired the body of Anya Hapgrass, a respected special officer. She'd wormed her way back into the good graces of the Supreme Heir. All she needed was to kill Atoy Musashi and make sure Klima became Supreme. Then it would be easy to manipulate the girl into having Balte released. Why does Gretchen want Balte released?
She liked it. The friends.
Really? Why? Oh, that's nice. But now that the inner melees were over, how could she get rid of Atoy Musashi? If I went to space prison for poisoning my best friend, would you help break me out?
I would say.
Would you set up a plot with a royal member? With the dawn contest underway, it would be harder than ever to get her pieces close to the full moon. She was running out of chances. God damn it! Bzzz. Gretchen glanced down. It seemed that in her fury, she hadn't even noticed her script fall out of her pocket and hit the floor. Does this imply that she had to hire King to enter the outer melees first? So how did the outer melees work? Was it also last one on the planet, or like last set amount of
it was the last one on the planet, and then each one from the outer melees. They were a lot less like extravagant. And then the winners of those went to the inner melees.
Okay, I see. So I imagine it was like, rather than a whole planet, it was like little bits of, like, little locales. She clicked her tongue. The screen was cracked. Another thing to worry about. Oh, sorry. Gretchen glanced down. It seemed that in her fury, she hadn't even noticed her script fall out of her pocket and hit the floor. She clicked her tongue. The screen was cracked. Another thing to worry about. She bent down to retrieve it, only to pause as she saw the distorted image on the screen. The final inner melee had concluded, apparently, and a news alert had come in about it. Apparently, it had been quite the spectacle. But she recognized that face on the screen. A lot of apparentlys. She'd seen it before when she was looking into the past of Atoy Musashi. That was the cogitant that had shot him in the back, the one he chased into the UAP for revenge. Those cold eyes belonged to Dragon Hadrian. Her lips spread out into a toothy grin. That was her chance. Azumha, Supremacy Capital, Supremacy Space. How does my voice sound right now? I feel like it's damaged.
Sounds fine.
Okay, good. Do you want to take over this last bit?
Sure. Roof gulped. She'd seen footage of this place online and in videographs and the like, but that didn't quite prepare you. As fellow megacities, she thought it would be pretty similar to Talden, but that hadn't been quite right either. There was something about Azumha, something that drilled down into your bones. A weight to the place. I just thought that would be a banger of the lines. I'm just going to add that now. As the ship descended down through the atmosphere, the landscape of the Supremacy Capital spread out before them. Ruth crossed her arms in the cockpit, taking it in, standing behind the pilot seat. She blinked. I don't know who the fuck Noah is. She blinked. Azumha was a world of two layers, the old and the new. Atop the planet, forming the face of the Supremacy, was a modern urban jungle, white spires jutting upwards and reaching towards the sky. Countless bright lights of one of the most advanced planets in the galaxy twinkled below, like a twin to the stars. Below that, though, was the world of the ancients. Temples and ruins built during the first years of the Supremacy, their purpose now lost to time and advancement. Moving through the old city, you could find yourself lost very quickly. There were stories of people going to explore, vanishing, and never being seen again, swallowed by the past. Countless other
Yeah, definitely singular on that. Much better.
Countless other ships, no doubt drawn by the contest as well, were heading down into the city in great streams, blotting out chunks of the sky. Ruth's eyes flicked between them before quickly being drawn to the structure at the centre of the city. It was quite the sight.
Sorry, off topic for the tone, I'm so sorry, but you know how like at sporting events they're always like 2-for-1 wings deal?
Oh, absolutely, this is very much merchandise, the Donut contest.
Yeah! It's like, buy one, get one free, large size.
The
inner melees. And it's like, but instead of like people like football players happily smiling, giving interviews, it's like people being blown apart on the screen. How is violence viewed in the modern galaxy with how much people die? Like, because I know it's a spectator sport, the intermediates, but like, would children be watching them, or would it be like, this is too much? Oh my god. So desensitized. The video games.
It was quite the sight. The body. It wasn't just a name. The complex in which the ministers made their galactic edicts was shaped like an upright and gargantuan human torso, stretching up, lacking arms and a head.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
But those things would have been perfectly smooth stumps reflected in light.
I can imagine that like a weird marble structure, like just a torso. Oh,
it was like someone had placed an exquisitely dismembered corpse at the very core of the world. Ruth's eyes drifted further up. Many buildings floated through the atmosphere in Azamhar. Ground space was rare and expensive after all, while there was always more sky to go around. An entire third layer of the city rarely touched the rest, only docking below to pick up and drop off passengers. Ruth's gaze was fixed even higher than the Sky City. The stadium of the Absolute shone on high, golden hull reflecting the sunlight. It was said that the first Supreme, Azez the Absolute, had been crowned there, and the entire structure had turned to gold in sympathy. Obviously not true, but looking at the thing, you could almost believe it.
I love that. That's like propaganda to the 11th. It was so majestic that his surroundings had no choice but to turn to gold.
Bruno stalked into the cockpit, his serious eyes locked onto the stadium as well.
On the flip side, if Samael was crowned supreme, it would turn to piss.
He's here, he muttered, or he'll be here soon. Right? Ruth nodded, resolute. And this time we'll bring him home. From deep within the bowels of Azamhar, a great drum began to sound, shaking the earth and shuddering the skies. All across the planet, from their houses to the streets to balconies overlooking the void, people cheered. Even if their lives would not improve, even if the future would bring nothing but suffering, they celebrated. After all, the Dawn contest had begun.
I can imagine like a heavy drum beat starts, boom, 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 as the next parts happen.
Boom.
And all the people walking in.
Boom. Ruth Blaine swallowed. Boom. Bruno Del said, took in a shuddering breath. Boom. Serena Del said, let it back out. Boom. Toy Muzati scowled. Boom. Dragon Hadrian smirked. Boom. And without mercy, the hands of history ticked on. End of Art 12.
Can someone do an edit of that, and every time it's a boom, put in a Vine boom? Boom! Oh my god. That's fun. I'm so ready. So we know we're only a little over halfway through, so it's obviously not going to end in the next arc or two. But I'm so curious what comes after the Dawn contest, or if it'll be interrupted, or what'll happen. This is so fun and exciting. Good stuff. We have some Aether questions.
I noticed a few of the Aether questions got answered in the Aether questions chat.
Very interesting. Alright, so first, it looks like a handsome guy talked in. That's interesting. Someone really handsome asked, we know bodies have an aether limit. Too much and you burn. Does the same apply to objects? Like if you infused an object too hard, it'd start deteriorating or explode or something?
So not necessarily. Raynash, for example, if you remember Raynash, he had like a Killer Queen sort of ability where he'd infuse it and it'd blow up. That's because what he's doing is infusing it specifically with like pressure points that cause it to become unstable and just explode. But it's a different sort of thing. So an aether limit basically is how much aether you can channel through yourself out into the world. Where it's the difference between like water going through a pipe and pouring water on something. So infusing an object, it would not have that same effect.
It'd be like pouring water on over it. Whereas this is like trying to take too much water through your pipe. Okay. JT asks, has there been any part of the series that wasn't originally planned to be there, but you've grown fond
There was
of?
originally, in my original ideas for Arc 3, there was a robot girl character who's going to be introduced, and she was going to like become like an ally to the crew.
That would have been awesome. What the fuck? We could have had a cute robot girl?
Yeah, she was going to like want revenge on the citizen because he like killed her scientist father. It was very early. There's no remnants of it really, but
I think you accidentally answered it the opposite way, though. Has there been any part of the series that you didn't originally plan to add, but you have
the opposite question. I wasn't originally planned. Well, a lot of this stuff does come in like through the telling. Like it's a little bit like A Song of Ice and Fire because you can tell as he's writing that he thinks of these cool ideas and they get expanded, and part of that is like why it's got so big. It's a similar sort of situation where I've got an idea of where the story's going, but if I think of something interesting in the meantime, that's going to probably grow and grow.
So what's an example of that? Something that you really grew fond of but didn't imagine would originally be a part of it?
Okay, well, something that wasn't originally planned to be there. So when Gretchen died in Art 10, originally when I wrote that chapter, it was like, that was Gretchen done. She's dead now. But I was like, actually, that was pretty lame. And it would be pretty cool if she like took someone over and we had like she kept plotting moving forward.
I'm actually so glad you did that because I think the fusion tools in her plots are extremely interesting. It would have been such a waste for her character to be
That's
done
what I was
there,
thinking as
when
well.
There's so much left for her. I'm so glad you did
And
that.
I already had like the old Demons of the Dawn idea like in there as well. So I was like, she's like the Aether armor expert. She can just make something similar to that.
You got to
She's a body shop.
Do you have time for a few more? Or do you want to end it
I can
there
do one more.
with questions? Okay. Here's a fun one. Do Bruno and Serena have different Aether cores, and in turn, did
Yes.
Jakob also have a different one? Do Negan, Rush, and Musashi have the same or different Aether cores?
Yes, they do.
If different, how much memory loss / amnesia has to occur for
You
someone's
have to
Aether
be a
core to
different
change?
person, essentially.
Okay. Interesting. Because I know he kind of like pseudo-fused with Negan, Rush, Crumb in 10.
So, for example, with the fifth dead, for example, the dead, the resurrection, sort of regeneration ability, that's really the first dead's ability that is sort of linked to the body they're in. So the rest of them, that's not technically their ability. They have their own individual Aether and cores and whatnot.
So funny about that, do you know the situation with Sebastian and the roleplay's ability?
I understand. I know that.
You know about the Hunt
Yeah.
and their whole thing? That it's like someone else's ability that died?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love that. All right, so that's the last one for now,
Yeah.
question-wise? All right. I'm going to try and remember where we left off with that. Wiser question. All right, perfect. All right, well, thank you guys for watching, as always, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.